Hi, my name is Miss Arevalo. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and welcome to Virtual Room 300. Quick facts about me. I attended Washington Middle School as a student. I graduated Olympia High School in 2013, graduated St. Martin's in 2017, and currently earning my master's at the UW Tacoma. I am a middle child. Your students will find out whether that's a good or not so good thing. I enjoy playing ping pong with students at lunch, and I look forward to when we get to do that again. I coach soccer at Washington with my dad and brother. And every Friday, I do something I call a Friday feature, where I watch a new to me movie. So if you have any suggestions, let me know. Always looking for something new. At the core of what we do in this class is learning who you are is what you're here to do. And that is so important, I believe, for writers to really discover who they are and realize that that question can always be revisited because we're always changing. And for a lot of my students who struggle with writing, they feel most of the time that they do not have a lot of power when it comes to what's in front of them, a blank page, when really they are allowed to bring all of their experiences and thoughts and values to this piece of paper. And there are a lot of things about them that people can say, we'd like to hear that. And so we do a lot of that thinking in Unit 1, where we really become mindful of who we are as people and who we are as writers. Where are you currently as a writer in regards to your mindset? And what can we say to ourselves to change that? A lot of students have trouble actually writing a word down because they're afraid of that red squiggly line, or they don't know how to say it in the way that they'd like. And so we need to reframe all of those thoughts so that a blank page becomes less scary. Unit 2 is all about narrative writing. We're thinking about how do we write creatively? How do we create a story, use figurative language? Unit 3 is all about academic writing, explanatory essays, argumentative essays, essay structures, and thesis writing. How do we write for an academic audience? And throughout all of these units, we'll be doing something called Writing Workshop, where students are receiving and giving feedback to each other. They receive and give feedback to us as adults or the teachers, and we work on editing and revising. I know that a lot of students have another ELA class, and so my goal is not to add more writing to their workload. My goal is to see what they're doing in those other classes and ask, how can I enhance their learning? How can I use what they're doing in those classes in my class? That way, they aren't getting too much work, but we're still thinking about what it means to be a writer. Resources we'll be using in this class are things like Scholastic Scope, Ellen Keene's Writers Workshop, and the Springboard curriculum provided to us by the district. Students will also be given time during this class period to organize their workload or practice coping strategies, especially because there's a lot of anxiety that can come from writing, and we want to be able to notice and name that in order to move forward and write. Grading. So, at the core of my grading system is I ask students to do the best they can when they can with what they have. And me and Mrs. Baldwin, my para, will help with the rest. That said, grading is 50% participation. Students show up, they're prepared, they're willing to try, they're cooperative and reflective, 50% of their grade. The other 50% is work completion. I know that they're still growing as writers, so I'm not going to penalize them for mistake after mistake. Instead, I want to look at work completion. Are they doing their best each time to produce work that shows that they're putting in 100% effort? Assignments they can expect are things like Writing Wednesday, which is a weekly prompt, and it helps me collect data on where they are as writers. It also helps me get to know them as people. Weekly assignments, which may include grammar practice or editing, and then the writing assessments, those bigger pieces like the story or the essay. And again, for some students, they might be writing an essay in another class. They can continue to work on that same essay in my class. I won't ask them to write a separate essay. I'm not sure they would like that all too much anyway. On Schoology is where you can find all of our in-class information. So when you go to Schoology, you'll see a big page, my home page, and at the bottom of that, there are a list of folders. I will always have the most current folder at the top, and then the previous week's folder underneath that. And then in archived weeks, you can find all the other weeks if your student missed something or needs to look back. Um, when you look at the folder, there will always be a list underneath the heading of what's due that week. And I always write the assignment title and the due date. That's a really good spot for students to be like, oh, this is what I need to do today. Let me go find it. When they go to find it, they'll click on that week folders. Let's say it's week 5. Once they click on that folder, they'll see 3 things. The first thing they'll see are the weekly slides. If your student is absent, that's a really good place for them to begin. It outlines what we are doing that week and the content that goes with it. Then they'll see an in-class folder. Well, they'll find all the activities we did together in class when we were on Zoom. Those things aren't, if your student was absent, I won't expect them to go through all those things. Next time I see them, I may walk them through it or ask them to go in a breakout room with Miss Baldwin to go over those things. And then the third folder is the independent folder. That is where your student can find their homework, the things they need to do outside of Zoom class, things like Writing Wednesday or their weekly writing assignment, things of that nature. My expectations for my students all have to do with this question. Are you ready to learn? We're really mindful of that question. We think intentionally about that question. If our brains aren't primed for learning, we're not going to receive the information that the teacher is giving. So our ready to learn expectations are you are on time and ready for class. You participate, whether that's speaking out loud or writing in the chat, and all that participation is on task. You make an attempt. I'm not asking you get it right the first time, but I'm asking you to try. And you practice kindness, not only to others, but to yourself. Screens on are not required, but strongly suggested. If you would like your student to keep their screen on, please send me an email, and I'll be sure to remind the student to keep their screen on. What if my student isn't feeling ready to learn? And this will happen, right? There's a lot of things going on in the world. There's a lot of things going on in their lives. And there are moments where they come to class and they are not ready. All I ask is they type to me in the chat, send me an email, whatever they feel comfortable, and let me know that they're not ready to learn. And what I'll do is in a breakout room, I will help them get ready to learn. We'll reflect on what they're feeling and maybe where that feeling is coming from. We'll practice some coping strategies, and then we'll create a plan together in order to move forward. It's okay to feel stuck. Like I tell my students, it's not okay to stay stuck, especially when you have people who are willing to help. There are many things that we can work on at home, but my priority when it comes to how this work transfers to what they're doing at home is our goal is to retrain our brain. So many of my students, when it comes to writing, feel so stuck in this mindset that they are not good writers, and that's not entirely true. They just need some more practice. And so we're always thinking about how do we reframe our thinking. So one thing that could be really helpful at home is to name any growth moments you see from your student at home. Celebrate those small wins together, whether it has to do with school or not. Naming those moments helps our brain begin to look for the good. Encourage your child to use coping strategies at home. Using the same language is key. And if you want to know more about what those look like, sound like, please send me an email. Especially with students who struggle with writing. Writing applies to all content areas, science, math, social studies. And so a lot of that homework anxiety comes from that feeling of, I need to write all these things down and I don't feel good enough to do that. And that can produce an overwhelming sense of worry. And so again, how do we get unstuck? How do we reset ourselves and reflect instead of react to those feelings? Encourage your child to be a self-advocate, especially those 7th and 8th graders who, have done it for a while. They have our emails, there's Schoology, there are ways for them to contact us. And more than ever, teachers are on their computers ready to help. So please encourage them to be a self-advocate. And just like I tell my students, you parents at home are doing a bunch, your students are doing a bunch. So all of us, we need to remember to take a deep breath, assume best intentions, and grow together. Please, if you'd like to contact me, use email just because I'm not always in the building where my phone is. So if you'd like me to call you, please email me with a few times that work best for you, and I'll be sure to call you before the week ends. And same for Zoom if you'd like to set up a meeting. Thank you, and I appreciate all of you, and I'm excited for a wonderful year together.